Creating art is something we have done since the beginning of time, and it's no surprise that art has evolved so much to the point where we have many different styles of work. From the pop art to surrealism, the sky is quite literally the limit. My name is Papa P, and today we are going to talk about 10 works of art that disturb me. How's it? And welcome to today's video. I saw it the perfect time to make a spooky video, since the weather in Cape Town right now is pretty spooky. Today I'll be going down a list of works that disturb me, from least disturbing to works that keep me up at night. Also, excuse my spooky voice for this video. So grab yourself a cup of tea, a hot beverage, relax, go lay on your bed, and let's get straight into this video. The Face of War. The Face of War is a painting made by Spanish artist and legend, one of my favorites, Salvador Dali. When you look at the painting, you'll see a distressed face with more and more faces endlessly recycling inside the eye sockets of said face. Now, the meaning of the painting, more or less, was the trauma that one experiences during a period of war. But the way I understand it as well, by the repeating of the traumatized faces throughout the painting, it's almost like a commentary on how war is never ending. It will always keep going, it will feed itself, it will continue. The thing that disturbs me about this painting is just the face, quite literally the imagery of the painting. And that's why it's the first disturbing painting, because I don't think it is inherently as disturbing as the rest of the paintings we'll see, but by looking at this thing, it definitely evokes some kind of feeling inside you. And you definitely understand the feeling that Salvador Dali was going for. Just look at the detail, just look at the darkness, just look at the shades of brown that he used to kind of interpret this painting. Dali also believed that his paintings were premonitions of war. And in the days that we're living today, I can't argue with what he was thinking. Paintings by Hieronymous Bosch. Now, with some of these works, I'll be talking about more than one painting from each artist. And when it comes to Hieronymous Bosch, I almost feel like you need to speak about his body of work as a whole. The first thing you'll see when looking at Hieronymous Bosch's work is that it is quite busy. There's a lot of stuff happening. But when you dissect exactly what's happening in each painting, it's rather disturbing. Now, one of the things I also have to mention is that I firmly believe that Hieronymous Bosch is a great inspiration to the creator of Where's Waldo. Martin Hanford, who is the creator of Where's Waldo, obviously doesn't use as dark imagery as Hieronymous Bosch, but I do see some similarities. When looking at this painting, Visions of Tondel, you will see a variety of things. You will see demonesque creatures interacting with humankind. You'll see oppression. You'll see a lot of darkness. And one thing that I always notice when looking at Bosch's work is you will see some kind of flaming landscape, some kind of flaming hellscape in the back of his paintings. I mean, look at this one. There's so much things happening here. And once again, you see the flaming landscape. And then you get this guy who's grating his junk on a serrated blade. When I look at these works personally, I feel quite disturbed. I feel like because there's so much things happening, it feels overwhelming. It feels dark, it feels sinister. And when you kind of dig into the meanings of these paintings, it kind of affirms exactly what you're feeling. I think Hieronymous Bosch's paintings are kind of open to interpretation. There's so much things happening, and you can almost kind of clump it into hell on earth. It's an hellscape experiencing on the mortal realm. But the most common motifs that he was painting about was about sin, greed, lust, envy, morals, demons and monsters interacting with humans. And for those reasons, I find Hieronymous Bosch's work fairly disturbing and a valid number 2 on this list. Midnight Paintings by Dr. Seuss. Now, before I even start this section, I must recommend you go check out Solar Sands' video on this topic. He goes into incredible depth about the darker paintings, and it's a fantastic, fantastic view. The Midnight Paintings by Dr. Seuss, or as others refer to as the dark work or the secret artwork of Dr. Seuss, is a collection of works that was discovered in Dr. Seuss's collection well after his passing. Now, the reason why I find these paintings interesting is because we have grown accustomed to seeing Seuss's usual work, his colorful creations, his whimsical animals, and his contorted buildings. Like, seriously, this doesn't even make sense. But most of those motifs carry through into the darker paintings, except it's devoid of color. It creates this feeling of isolation. It creates this dread of being alone in a massive liminal space. And I think that's why I find it extremely disturbing to see these works, because we are so used to seeing this man in all the colorful glory that he's been depicted as, but there's always a darker side to every person. Look at this piece of work titled An Artist Worrying, where you can see one of Dr. Seuss's creations twiddling his thumbs in a dark infinite void. Now, I can relate with this feeling as an artist myself, but it's very interesting seeing Dr. Seuss depicted in his own visual style. Now, when you look at this piece of work by Dr. Seuss, you see one of his creations in all of its colorful glory, sitting in this landscape devoid of color, in almost a black or bluish background. And this painting gives me that feeling of loneliness, dread, isolation, something that we are not used to seeing in Dr. Seuss's work. Here we can see one of his animals drinking from a water well in exactly the same motif, darkness, devoid of color, it being the only thing that consists of any notable color. It's nice to know that Dr. Seuss was just like everyone else. He wasn't just this colorful, happy guy. He had a darker side to him as well. And that just makes me appreciate his work even more. And I do find it interesting that these paintings were kept a secret from us. But what does that tell us? Dr. Seuss was also struggling with the darker side of reality. And that is why I find these paintings disturbing. Study After Velazquez. Study After Velazquez is a painting made by Francis Bacon, and I'm not going to go so deeply into the history of Francis Bacon's tortured life, albeit he has an extremely tortured life. There are many videos that dives deeply into that subject itself. I'm going to focus more on the disturbing work itself. Now, before we even start dissecting this painting, it is important to know that this painting is a distorted version of the portrait of Innocent X, painted by Spanish artist Diego Velazquez. Now, before we even dissect this painting, I think you can all agree with me that the painting at face value is rather disturbing, but the meaning even more so. The facial expression of the Pope conveys that the Pope is about to scream in despair, almost as a reflection that the existence of God has caused corruption. I love this painting. Francis Bacon is one of my uncle's favorite artists, and I can see why. The work has a very visceral feeling, and when you look at this painting, it's impossible not to feel something. The stark lines that is used almost creates this feeling of ascension, almost like this Pope's soul is being ripped from his body. Looking at another one of Bacon's paintings, the triptych, it's easy to see that Francis Bacon loved distorting the human figure, as it's very difficult to kind of understand what it is he's trying to depict. But I find the study of Velazquez extremely disturbing, as you can relate as a human to the facial expressions you see on the painting, almost tearing this man apart by his devotion to Christ. That is why I find this painting very, very scary. The Eighth Circle of Hell. Now, the Eighth Circle of Hell is a painting by an artist that I actually discovered on Instagram. I've been a fan for quite a while, and since I discovered his work, it's always touched me in such a profound way. The way he incorporates the darkness and the beauty of using minimal color schemes. I've never been able to kind of look away from his work. His name is Canker. I will link his YouTube, I think he has, and his Instagram in the bio. So you should definitely go check out some of his work, because I can't even share everything. Some of the stuff is so disturbing. But this work, The Eighth Circle of Hell, is the one that had touched me the most. When looking at this painting, you are greeted by a mask. You are greeted by someone who is ripping off the mask to reveal something much, much darker and sinister. And the caption to this post reads as follows: "This isn't me. I just can't take this mask off for some reason. I swear normally it comes right off. Stop looking at me like that. I swear, it isn't what you think. Whew. Now I think that already sends shivers down your spine. Now let me show you some of his other work to show you why I say his work is beautifully haunting. Now the thing that disturbs me the most about this imagery is definitely the meaning behind it. I feel a lot of us are hiding away behind a mask, and this painting just portrays it beautifully. We might be portraying ourselves as innocent and pure, but beneath that layer, are we really as pure as we come across? The top comment on this piece sums it up perfectly. I feel this in my bones. It is so beautifully tragic. And I couldn't agree more. I tend to find beauty in the darker things in life. I find this work extremely beautiful, but by looking at it at face value, it can definitely disturb you. So go give Pitch Canker a follow, a like, go check out his stuff, and let me know what you guys think of the rest of his work, because I find it personally beautiful to look at, and disturbing of course. All Creations by H.R Giger. Now, before I even go in depth about the work of H.R Giger, I think most of you guys are familiar with his work without even knowing so. He is the designer of all the monsters that you see in things like Alien vs Predator and Prometheus. And I've always been a fan of this biomechanical art style that he's created for himself. But I do find it extremely disturbing to look at. The reason I find his work quite disturbing is that he's got this way of mixing normal human form with something completely out of this world, something alien. Bada boom. I don't know if you guys also feel that way, but I always feel disturbed when someone mixes the natural human form with something completely different. He takes these almost normal things and warps and morphs them into something completely unrecognizable. And I really do enjoy the way that he also makes these things look like ancient cave paintings, almost like it could have existed, almost like it's something that we have discovered from an ancient past. He is obviously an extremely talented artist, and the work really does speak for itself, but I get this uncomfortable feeling when looking at his work. Being faced with the unknown is one of the biggest fears that we have, and by him making these things seem so realistic, so real, it gives you this uncomfortable feeling of existentialism. You won't know how to face this threat once you are approached with it. Beautiful. Beautiful and very, very daunting and disturbing. H.R Giger is definitely one of my favorite monster set designers, and yeah, his work definitely touches you in a different way. Inappropriate. Hands Resist Him by Ballon. Now, from here on out, the paintings will still be quite disturbing, but some of the things that make them more disturbing are the stories that surround these paintings, specifically this painting, The Hands Resist Him. Let's first break down the painting. When looking at The Hands Resist Him, you are greeted by a boy and a doll-like girl with hands at the back panels of the door. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but I've always been disturbed by dolls. The Hands Resist Him give you this almost uncanny feeling. There's almost you want to look away, but you want to look at the painting at the same time. There's so much happening in the painting. When you zoom into the painting, you'll see the hands at the back panel. You'll see the lifeless eyes of the little girl. And you'll see the deadpan expression of the boy looking directly at you. Now, that was just looking at the painting itself. But once you go into it a bit more deeply, there are a lot of stories that are connected to this painting. The Hands Resist Him was listed on eBay in February 2000, and the listing was titled Haunted Painting, causing quite a sensation. In mere hours, the painting's story and link was shared all across the internet. The eBay listing racked up more than 30,000 views before its sale. The person who eventually bought the painting said the following: "At the time we wondered a little why a seemingly perfect painting would be discarded like that, and today we don't. One morning, our 4.5-year-old daughter claimed that the children in the painting were fighting and coming into the room during the night. That's cock scary." Many other people also have claimed to experience physical sensation after viewing the painting. One eBay claimer claimed that he fainted at the sight of the painting, while another said she felt like her throat was being tightened by an external grip. Now, I don't know if that's just a placebo effect or that the painting really is haunted, Now I think if you posted this painting without the little subtext of it being haunted, it wouldn't have affected so many people. Another tragic thing was linked to the painting as well. The hand system is said to be responsible for the deaths of 3 men who were close to the painting at the time of its first sale. The first was Henry Seldes in 1978, the art critic who wrote a review of Stonham's work at his debut art show in 1974. According to the authorities at the time, they believed Seldes committed suicide after being found dead in his apartment. The next was Charles Faintgarden, the man who contracted Stonham's work and whose gallery served at the location for the art show. Faintgarden passed in 1981. Lastly, the owner was actor John Marley, who died in 1984 after having open heart surgery. Though he sold the painting before his death, Marley was best known for his part in the movie The Godfather. He was the one who wakes up in bed with a horse's head. After the death of these 3 men, the painting disappeared but was later found by the original owner on eBay. The painting presently resides in the back room of Smith's Perception Fine Art Gallery in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Its current resting place is as a result of a request from Smith's sons, who didn't want to keep the most haunted painting in the world in their family home. This video is sponsored by myself, Skemerkat clothing. So if you guys are in the market for something a bit more dark, something a bit more mysterious, go check out my clothing store, Skemerkat clothing. I'll put up some clothes here. It's only a 10-second ad, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the video. Man proposes, God disposes. Man Proposes, God Disposes is yet another haunted painting. Now before we go into the story surrounding the painting, let's first dissect the painting. Man Proposes, God Disposes is an oil painting by the English artist Edwin Landseer. The work was inspired by the search for Franklin's lost expedition, which disappeared in the Arctic after 1845. Now, when looking at the painting, you'll be greeted by 2 polar bears, seemingly ravaging a shipwreck. And when you zoom into the painting, you will see something more disturbing. What seems to be human remains being consumed by one of the polar bears. Now, I find this painting extremely daunting for the fact that it depicts something that could have really happened, something that is rumored to have happened to this shipwreck. And the expressions on both bears are so feral. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but feral wild animals have always frightened me, because they lack the ability to understand and to comprehend what it is that we want to say. They act merely on instinct. Now, let's delve into the story behind the painting. The painting currently hangs in the Royal Holloway University of London and is covered every year during exams, as it is allegedly haunted. The story that the tour guides would often give you is that during exams in the 70s, this painting caused a student to commit self-deletion, writing on his paper about the polar bears. Whether this is true or not, every year the painting gets covered in the university. Now, whether or not this painting is haunted is up to you. But if you are ever going that side and you're going to go see Man Proposes, God Disposes, I would just bat an eye and walk past it, because this painting is fairly disturbing. Now, just a side note on Man Disposes, God Proposes. Earlier today, when I was showing this piece to my mom on a video call, our internet cut off and it didn't come on for half an hour. Do with that information what you must. Untitled by Zdzislaw Beksinski. Now I'll give you the same advice that I gave you during the Bosch section of this video. Go check out In Praise of Shadows. He made an incredible video about this specific artist. He called it the Nightmare Artist, and it delves much more deeply into Zdzislaw Beksinski's work. Beksinski was a Polish painter who focused on painting, photographs and sculpture. His paintings would often depict a dystopian world riddled by war, where not much was left, and he did this in the style of surrealism. But let's look at this Untitled painting of Beksinski. This painting is quite difficult to look at, and if I had to title it, I would call it Everlasting Love, or Lovers in a Desert Storm. Kaknaam. But it's very, very disturbing to look at. You are greeted by 2 figures embracing each other in a fashion that we are not used to seeing this. Firstly, they are surrounded by nothingness, by almost this radioactive mist, desert-esque landscape. And then the difficult thing to unsee is that the two of them are holding so tightly onto each other. It almost reminds me of those people that are found after the bomb at Hiroshima, where they were holding each other even to the moments of their death. This painting is very, very dark and very, very beautiful to look at the same time. Disfigured and completely devoid of anything that makes you human. These two people are showing the most true emotion of humankind, which is love. Beksinski's paintings often depict anxiety, such as torn doll faces, faces erased or obscured by bandages wrapped around the portrait. His main focus was on abstract painting, although it seems his work in the 1960s were inspired by surrealism. Just look at this thing, something straight out of your nightmares. Barely enough is left there to call it a human, but yet you do get the human emotion. The world is ravaged by war and destruction, and you get this creature crawling around for survival. Beksinski's paintings are eerily beautiful, and I have a deep, deep appreciation for the arts and the craft that went into it. But I do find it disturbing to look at for much longer than 10 minutes, which is much longer than I've been editing this video, so I'm deeply disturbed. His Untitled piece that we are focusing on at the moment, it means the most to me because I think in most situations people have someone that they love, someone they would embrace in their final moments of departure. And it just gives me a shiver down my spine thinking of that person, thinking of this situation. That's why the painting invokes something very strong inside me. And yeah, it's just beautiful and disturbing. Photography by H.R Ballen. Now we are back again with one of my favorite artists of all time, H.R Ballen. Now, in a previous video that I spoke of, I did tell you a bit more about H.R Ballen and how the first time I discovered his work was in the Antwoord's music videos. But I want to go into a bit of a deeper dive with some more images that I found of his and some work that disturbed me the most. H.R Ballen often goes into the most darkest and abandoned places in South Africa. Devoid of normal life, he shows us what it looks like in poverty-stricken areas of South Africa. I don't know if I would ever go into these areas myself, but H.R Ballen, the goat no cap, just look at this photograph that he took. I struggle to kind of dissect exactly what it is that he's trying to depict, but he's trying to show us in a beautiful and a haunting way how people have to live out there. And one of the things I find disturbing about his pieces is that he uses the human form and distorts it completely into this dark and grimy and musty feeling. Look at this photograph of this mouse seemingly ironing out his human suit. Is he trying to say that we are all mice? Or is he trying to say we are rats in life? But he's trying to depict that we all once again wear a mask. This is one of his most famous photos. And I would lie to you if I could completely understand it and explain it to you, but I find it extremely, extremely disturbing. The juxtaposition between something as clean and pure as this puppy and a pair of dirty feet, they just don't sit right with me. Then you've got this image of this once again mouse-like figure placing a spider on a lady seemingly watching television. It's very easy for us to spot that it's a mannequin. And just the uncanny valley of it makes it extremely uncomfortable for you to view. Once again, as I said last time, I will link H.R Ballen's photography in the YouTube description. Go check it out. I hope you guys enjoy checking it out because I love his work. He's got some amazing short films on YouTube as well. Asylum of Birds is one of my favorites, so please, please, please feel free to go check it out. Let me know what you think of H.R Ballen's work, as he never fails to disturb me. Finally, the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. As I said before, these are my opinions on disturbing works. Some of the things aren't as deeply researched as you will find on the rest of YouTube. So if you are interested in any individual piece, please go check out some other videos, go learn some more. I kind of just wanted to make this video to let you know how I felt, what my interpretation was of these paintings and photos. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys get some good sleep tonight. And yeah, smash the like button, subscribe, kak uit het uit, poop diddy scoop for all those guys who still want to do that. And yeah, much love, amaze. I'll see you guys in the next one. Sleep tight.